I appreciate you making time for me, sir.
Well, thanks for having me, Ryan.
You're a busy man. What do you have, 7 jobs now?
Well, just a couple. The main one is up at Plain Local School District.
Yeah.
School resource for 3 K4 buildings. And,
So 1 person, 3 buildings.
Yeah, myself and another guy are
Okay.
in the elementaries, and we share 3 buildings.
Mm-hmm.
However, when you get up to the upper grades, there's 1 at each building, and then at the high school, there's 2.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So larger school districts than maybe what we're used to.
Well, yeah, actually, Plain took the initiative back in, I think it was 2018, that they really saw the need, and they went to work. The board I'm talking about, and the superintendent, and they thought, well, you know what? Too many things are happening. We're going to protect the students. We're going to protect the staff and everybody that comes in and uses the building. And they ended up putting on a lot of security.
So you took your talents up north, unlike LeBron James going south. You took them up north.
I did. Well, I was pretty grateful to Sheriff George Meyer, Stark County Sheriff. He called, and at the time I was, let's just say the word loafing.
Loafing.
Which
You're
I
hard
don't
on
do much.
yourself.
I don't do much of. But, yeah, Sheriff called and said, "Would you consider?" And I said, "Absolutely." 'Cause it put me back in uniform again, which is my first love. And actually, we're next year in June will be year number 40.
That's 40. Is that heard of normally in the policing world?
Yeah, that's very unheard of. Most people only can put up with 25, and they're out and they're done.
Yeah.
And they don't ever want to see another uniform.
You can't get enough.
No, I really enjoy it, and I know that there will be a day when I will say I'm done. Don't know when that'll be.
It's got to be a big party
Well, yeah, I guess.
or a morning session.
I'll probably miss it horribly.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not going to lie.
Well, you're a guy that's going on 40 years, won't stay away from it, so I imagine you'd miss it. No one's faking you to do this.
Yeah, no, I missed Dover when I left there. You know, that was 25, and when I packed up and went out west, I missed Dover. So I didn't miss it for long because Mesquite was a phenomenal place to live, to work, and to play. So,
and that kind of brings us. I mean, we're going to go through your history. I don't want to give away too many secrets.
Yeah, that's true.
But I mean, tell me what we got in front of me, because this is my first attempt, I guess, at what I'm calling an official drink. And I think you don't really know someone until you have an official drink with them.
No, that's true.
Maybe that's my philosophy.
Well, a lot of business people, our business community, a lot of deals are struck.
Oh yeah,
Either having a drink or having lunch or having dinner.
Yep.
And it's not unusual. And I think you're onto something there. So
well, tell me how we came to what you told me we need to have Crown and Ginger. That's Bob Everett's drink of choice.
Crown and Ginger is from Mesquite. Funny you ask.
Okay, tell me. I'm going to start putting ice together. I'll have you pour me up. It's that you brought that. That's from the Bob Everett cabinet.
I did bring some Crown Royal Black, so it's pretty good stuff.
How'd you get turned on to that?
Okay.
How's that drink of choice?
I was out in Mesquite.
You're a nice man. You a rocks man or no rocks man?
Look at that's fine.
Well, I went to some effort for you, Bob.
You did. Hey, number one. I never touched whiskey.
Okay.
Ever.
Okay.
Ever.
It might be a smart decision for a lot of people, at least.
Yeah, right. 2006, when I got out to Mesquite.
Yeah.
I was 45 years old, so you can do the math. But I was 45, and there was a guy a couple years older than me in the police department, detective. Well, he was a road guy at first, but then he became a detective. But we hit it off pretty good because, excuse me again, he was only a couple years older than me. And we were sitting around maybe at a meeting or something, and he says, "Hey, after we're done, you come up the house." He says, "We'll have some Crown and Ginger." And I said, "Crown and Ginger? Crown Royal?" I said, "Well, Ron, I don't drink whiskey. I've never had, you know."
He said, "Today you do."
He says, "You try it once, you'll be hooked."
Here we are.
Well, there
From
you go.
2006 to 2020.
Yeah. So, frankly, Ron actually turned me on to the Crown and Ginger, and it's good. Now, obviously, I don't go through the bottles of Crown, one a week, one a day.
Sure.
But, whenever.
Yeah.
If I'm out socializing and I want to drink, it's either going to be a Crown or it's going to be a Cabernet.
Oh, okay.
I like Cabernet too.
Yeah, go for the
Cabernet.
white wine.
Yeah, no,
No, the red wine. Sorry, excuse me. Yes. red
Yeah,
wine.
very, very dry.
Show you how classy I am.
No, that's all right. In fact, the wife calls it vinegar. So,
I have to agree with the wife.
Oh, yeah.
I got to tell
a
you,
lot of people don't like it.
all of red wine to me tastes like vinegar.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you go for the Cabernet.
Yeah, well, I do, and not to be sacrilegious, but a lot of times when we're out and we'll have, the waitress will bring garlic bread. Mm-hmm. In fact, I can think of one establishment in New Philly over by the VFW where I like to have a glass of Cabernet and a garlic bread, and I'm looking around and I'm thinking, gosh, I sure wish maybe a priest or somebody would walk in. We could have communion. That'd be good for the year.
It's perfect. Yeah, you just round them up, and you'll be you can miss a couple.
Yeah. No, but I do like my Cabernet, and it's really, really good with some fresh Italian garlic bread or just Italian bread. So.
Well, you heard it from Bob Everett first, folks. Get yourself some Cabernet and garlic bread. Bob, I'll have you pour me up. Give me your standard drink, and I brought limes. I don't know if you want them.
No, just now.
You give me the Bob Everett special.
All right. Oh, we'll pour a little in there.
There we go. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, you might want to. Whoops.
There we go. Hey, that'll do.
And we'll give you a little dab more.
Yes, we'll go one drink, and I'm drinking with a police officer, so I'll know my limits.
Yeah, we won't partake too much. We'll be in good shape. Not that much.
So here we are. Bob Everett got turned on to Crown and Ginger in Mesquite, but it doesn't start there for you in the law enforcement world.
No.
Where does it start?
Well, it started way back.
Excuse me. Where are my manners, Bob?
Oh,
cheers to you,
Ryan,
sir. I appreciate it. Thanks for doing this.
And thanks for having me.
Ooh, I can see why. So start me off on the story of Bob Everett going down the road of police work.
Well, it all started back when I think I was probably about 15 years old, roughly, give or take, maybe 14, 15. Mm-hmm. It actually goes back further than that, like grade school. I knew what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And I just had my mind made up in grade school. I was pretty fortunate in that regard. A lot of young kids don't know what they want to do.
Law enforcement seems to attract the people that are going into it
early
on. I mean, that seems like something that whenever somebody seems to know they want to be a police officer, they want to protect and serve, and you did.
Yeah, I did. So here we are, about 15 years old. I went into Dover PD, and I, of course, I'm shaking a little bit. And I asked to see the chief, and of course I got the third degree. What do you want to see the chief for? It's like,
yeah, it got scary a little bit.
You walk in and ask for the chief. It's like a kid.
Yeah, 15-year-old.
I could, after being there now as long as I've been in the service, I can only imagine some kid walking in asking for the chief. It'd be like you'd have to go through hoops, and everything. But Chief Jack Griffin, retired from Dover, retired chief at Dover PD. He came out. And I let him know, I said, Chief, I'm very interested. I said, I'd be interested in maybe washing your cars or doing something, just to kind of hang out and get a foot in the door and get to know the business from the inside instead of being an outsider.
Yeah.
And, we had a little discussion, and I knew a couple of the officers there and dispatchers, so it wasn't like I was an actual complete unknown commodity. Mm-hmm. So now that again that I know, I'm sure he went back in and asked a couple people, who is this kid? What's he doing? So
what does he want?
Yeah, because how unusual that is for a young person to walk into a PD. It's very unusual.
That's mature.
Well, especially a kid in high school.
Yeah, exactly.
You're thinking, whoa, something's not right here.
I can't even pick up the phone.
Well,
I'm 25.
Yeah. So anyway, we'll fast forward and get to the good part. Lo and behold, for about a year, I was washing cars for nothing. And they would take them up the old 4th Street garage in Dover, and I would wash the cars and of course, I didn't even have a driver's license, so the guys would have to bring them up and leave them and then have somebody else pick them up. And then I think I would get on the radios in the city trucks and call the station and let them know that the car was done, or they would just come back and check on it in a certain amount of time.
Yeah.
I can't recall. I know one time for sure I got on the city radio. I was kind of mocking a guy, and he answered the radio at the PD, and I about died.
Oh, it's like,
Yeah,
maybe
it's
no.
Oh,
That open net a little bit makes
Yeah,
it risky.
yeah. But anyway,
That
then,
didn't throw you off. You didn't get fired.
no, I didn't. It was all a big laugh to them. I was scared to death, but it was a big laugh. But anyway, I ended up going, and then it was probably about a year later. I remember Tom McGuire, who used to be our safety director. They called me from the station at home and said, "Come down here. Safety director wants you." And, of course, you're a little shaky when they say the safety director because these are all big, heavy hitters, and I'm at that time I'm probably about 16 years old. And
yeah,
these are all big, heavy hitters, and it's like, what did I do?
Yeah, everything the
Well,
past
it
weeks
does.
racing through your mind.
So, and I can remember it as vivid because it was so important in my life that I pulled up out front and I started to walk toward the side door, the PD, same side door. And Tom McGuire comes out and grabs him by the hand and says, "Come on, you're going with me." And I said, "What are we doing?" He says, "Just come on." So we went into the service director's secretary, which was Margaret Walter. And basically what he did, he put me on the payroll. And I had to sign all the official forms for retirement and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
That's really where it all started. And I did the cars then all the way through high school. When I went down to Hocking for college for 2 years, I would come home just about every weekend, and I'd take care of the cars and continue and stayed employed. And when I finished up college, I finished up on a Thursday during the day, and believe it or not, things just fell into line, and it had been a lot of behind-the-scenes work by the chief.
Yeah.
But things fell in line, and quite frankly, I finished on Thursday. Sunday night, midnights, I started as a civilian dispatcher at 20.
20 years old.
20 years old.
So that's that's a quick exchange from
I'm washing cars to,
out there running the road. So what's that beginning look like in Dover?
Well, it was really funny because, most of your new people have to have training. And cancel that. I had been sitting there for at least 3 years, 4 years, watching, sitting right beside the dispatcher watching. And there was times that I would literally answer the phone because they were busy. And I mean, as a kid, but yet I wasn't a kid.
Yeah, you're experienced in the line of work.
I was an experienced kid.
Yeah.
But so here we are, 20 years old, and nobody with me. And I took that as a very high mark.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's no training involved, really.
No, I didn't have to have any training. I sat down and ran the desk that night.
Yeah, it's an easy choice.
And it was great. And I'll never forget the words of Chief Griffin, because he did call me over to his house on that Sunday. And he said, I'd known all this was going to take place, but yet he called me over and he says, "I'm going to put you on the schedule Sunday night, midnight," because somebody was off sick.
Yeah.
And he needed a body now, And he looked at me and he says, "No, you're the youngest guy that's ever worked here. Don't let me down."
Yeah. It's a
And
precedent setter.
And you've got to think real long and hard. I can't let this guy down. Because, as we move forward a little bit, Chief Griffin gave me everything. And today, I still, whenever I do a public speaking engagement or I talk about the PD, I will forever, even someday, unfortunately, when he's no longer with us, I will still give him full credit, full honors, because if it had not been for him to give a 15-year-old kid a chance,
Yeah.
I may have never walked through the door and never made it. And I must always credit him because he did it. And, he got me going, and I worked in, let's see, that would have been 1981. And he ended up retiring in 85, but prior to his retirement, he made sure that I got to be a patrolman on the road. And I got on the road then, and we went through the processes of being a patrolman. And then in 1999, July, I became captain and ran the shift. And one of the greatest moments was in 2006 in May, when I left after 25 years of service. Well, 25 plus if you're going to count the other time. But I had Joe Miser from the Times Reporter. He wanted to do a story. And I said, Joe, I'll do any story you want to do, but I have one request and one caveat, I said, I need Chief Jack Griffin to be in a photo with me.
Yep.
Because I said, he started it all. And one of the greatest things was that photo was taken, and I was in the police car, and he was standing beside me. And it ended up being a real nice story. Joe did a great job, as he always did. And it was wonderful because he was able to see me all the way through from walking in as a kid till my retirement. And it was actually a retirement. I wasn't really collecting pension, but for all purposes, it was a retirement.
Yeah.
And that's when, in 2006, that's when I left and went out to Mesquite, Nevada, PD, and got on the police department there.
So all of those years before we go out to Mesquite, I mean, you're not only working as a kid washing these cars, but you're running the roads then.
Yeah.
I mean, you know the city like the back of your hand.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I had a young man. I tell this story all the time. I got more stories than you can imagine.
That's perfect.
We'd be here till midnight if I told all my stories.
You're the type of person that gives me a job, Bob.
I had a young man one time on Worcester Avenue. I was doing afternoon shift, and it was probably about this time of year. And I think he was headed to maybe basketball practice, so it could have been actually a little bit later.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, it got dark a little bit earlier. And he's southbound on Worcester. I'm northbound. And he's speeding. He's doing about 52 and a 35. And so I flipped on him. The biggest problem he had was he cut down 7th Street, West 7th, in the 100 block of West 7th. So in other words, coming from Worcester, he made a right onto West 7th. Little did he know I grew up in that neighborhood.
You knew what was going on.
Well,
you knew
yeah.
where to go, and you knew what was going on.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, I grew up on West 6th, and this was just a block up.
Yeah.
He decided he was going to slide right in, and as soon as he made that right turn, he was going to go left into an open field. Just park his car there. Well, I grew up there. We played kickball in that field. So I knew there should be no cars in that field.
Yeah.
So anyway, long story short again, I pulled up behind him, walked up, and I said, can I ask what you're doing? And he made up some story. I don't know what it was, but he made up a story. And I said, well, I need your driver's license because I said, you were speeding on North Worcester. And I said, the other thing I want to tell you before I go back and write a ticket, not a good idea to run from a guy that grew up in the neighborhood.
It's perfect. I mean, that's who you want on the force. People that know what's going on, people that know what's around them.
But that was a good one. And that was a good story. But I did have a lot of different things. I mean, the greatest thing too that I got involved with was community functions. Board of Education.
Yeah.
I was so fortunate the citizens of Dover gave me an opportunity in 1985. I would have been 24 years old, and they elected me to the school board of Education.
There
24.
you go. So you're serving in multiple capacities then.
And I don't say that as an egotistical bragging point.
Oh, sure.
I say it as I'm thankful, once again, that the citizens said, hey, you know what, this guy, he might be okay.
Well, this is a talk about who you are, Bob.
Yeah.
This is why we're here. So this is what we
Well,
want to know. Like, I want your resume. It's like a job interview.
Well, here we are, 24. And actually, I'm very proud to say that at that point, I was the highest vote getter that year.
There you go.
And beat out 2 incumbents, both of whom ended up being 2 of my best buddies. And
Well, that's always a nice ending of the story.
In fact, the one we brought back on the board when there was a resignation, and I made the comment to him, and I meant it with all my heart. Had I have known you, I would have never ran that year because you're a terrific board member and you're a wonderful guy. And I would have never run that year because you were there and you would have done an excellent job. And I would have set out and done it later. But I did it, and I ended up serving 2 terms on the board, 8 years. And then I thought, and I'm a very, very firm believer in term limits. I preach that constantly, and I believe in it. And I normally self-impose my own term limits. So I did 2 years on that board, and then I thought, I could go again, but I don't want to. I think sometimes when people serve in certain positions too long, they become part of the problem, not part of the solution, because you can't see the trees for the forest. And I just am a believer that it's time to get out. And Now, unlike the police job, I obviously don't think that.
Well, that's not
I'm
an
not
elected
the same-
official.
No, and I'm not at the same place either. So.
Well, yeah, sure. So yeah, you leave when did you? 2006.
So
You went out to Mesquite.
I did. Yeah. I left the Dover PD in 2006.
What brought you out to Mesquite?
Mesquite is where our in-laws would go out and stay in the winter.
Okay.
And the most ironic story about that is when we first would go out, we'd go out to Vegas for vacation.
Yeah.
Then we'd drive up to Mesquite, which was an hour away. Mesquite was nothing more than a fuel stop in the middle of the desert in the beginning.
Yeah.
It was nothing.
So when you went out there?
At first.
Okay, yeah.
Well, before I went out.
Oh, okay. When you knew it, but before you were living out there.
Yeah, right. And I told the wife at one point, I says, I'll tell you what, because we went up there and it was like somewhat boring compared to Vegas. And I told her, I said, you could double my salary. I'd never work here or live here.
Eat your words, Bob.
Ironically, the old crow came back and I had a pie. But what I did, I got online and I saw that there were openings, lateral openings. And which for those that aren't aware of that means basically that I'm certified in Ohio. I can basically go to Nevada, get their training, and it would be very little. Mm-hmm. And then I would be an officer. In other words, I didn't have to start all over and go through an entire academy.
Yeah.
So that's basically what that meant. So I ended up going to Mesquite, and I served there 5 years. And that was another episode. I at first went out with the mindset, because of my responsibility in Dover with, running day shift and taking care of the cruisers and doing the extra duty at times and helping out with many different things. I thought, I'm going out here, I'm just going to be a policeman. I don't want any responsibility. I'm not going to do anything except my job, and that's it.
Yeah.
Well, that didn't last long.
Eat your words again, Bob.
Well, because I about a year in, maybe a year, maybe not quite a year, they needed help with some type of immediate release, and I had a little experience at that because I did a lot of Dovers, and I was also, if we back up a little bit, in 1989, I became president of the local FOP, and one of my goals was to make sure that folks in Dover and Tuscora County knew what the FOP was, Fraternal Order Police.
Yep.
I wanted them to know, so therefore, the only way they're going to know is if I'm going to say it the right way, we toot our own horn.
Sure.
They've got to know that we're there, and we are the organization that represents law enforcement in this county.
Yep.
And we serve our communities, and we do this, we do that. So
for some reason, there's 4 radio stations, a newspaper, and we have all kinds of online things now. But back then, there were still these stations around.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously, you have the media, you just need the releases.
Right. And we had there was really virtually no internet. And, way back. But I back to Mesquite then, I ended up, typed up a little release form. It was something that I think a principal did something pretty spectacular about a student that was either lost or missing, or I can't really remember what it was, but I typed this thing up, and everybody's in awe. Now, mind you, I have to tell you this, Mesquite was only incorporated in 1984.
Okay.
So Mesquite was a fairly new community. It had went from what I said, 2 traffic lights and a fuel stop in the desert, to, when we moved there, the fastest growing city in Nevada in 2006.
Just blowing up.
So it was starting to really go.
Yeah.
And I got there basically at the right time. And so I ended up giving this release. I don't remember if it was to my sergeant or who it was. It might have been to my sergeant. And he in turn gives it to chief. And next thing I know, they're having me type up some releases here and there.
This guy was good at that.
Well, they didn't know. They had nobody there that knew how to do that. See.
Yeah.
And another story. I told you I had stories. Sorry.
This is perfect. No,
another story that
gives me more
sticks
time
in
to
my
drink.
mind. We're sitting around at a conference for joining forces, which was the name of what we called the traffic grant for the state of Nevada. You've reported, in fact, where Ohio has. You'll read where State Patrol announced they're going to enforce traffic on Labor Day weekend, and there's going to be a grant from the state of Ohio. Well, ours was the state of Nevada, and it was called Joining Forces.
Okay.
Where we would take, now in Nevada it's a little bit different. In Nevada, when you're sworn in as an officer, you can make an arrest anywhere in the state of Nevada.
Okay.
Traffic or criminal. So we would take our cruisers and we would all join forces, quote.
Yeah.
And we would head to North Las Vegas, Henderson, Boulder City, and some of those places down. We'd take our cruiser. Five of us would take our police cars because we had take-home cars. We'd head down to Vegas, not necessarily Vegas proper, but right around Vegas, the suburbs. And we would do traffic grant. We would do nothing but enforce traffic.
Just crossing jurisdictions and
It didn't matter. Yeah. In fact, on the way down one time, we had somebody on Interstate 15. The speed limit at the time was 75. You're out west, remember. And we had somebody going about 35 in the lane and just causing a heck of a traffic problem. One of our guys stopped him and wrote him a ticket halfway to Vegas.
Yeah, I was expecting, when you said out west, I was expecting like 160 miles an hour on a
75 was
street bike. Yeah.
But anyway, so what I'm saying is you can write a traffic ticket.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, if I see a Strasbourg cop like in New Philly, I'm like, well, he's going somewhere.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about
something else.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna concern myself.
Not in Nevada. Yeah, because I actually, when I was in Henderson one time and was writing a guy a ticket, he looked at my arm patch and he said, "You're from Mesquite." And I said, "Yes, sir." He says, "You can't write me a ticket." And I said, "Well, I can." He says, "No." And he got a little nasty. And I always try to treat the public, pretty good.
Oh, sure. You want to leave them with a good taste in their mouth.
But he got really nasty. And at one point I said, "Well, I'm going to perform a miracle right in front of your eyes. I'm going to write you a ticket. And I'm an officer from Mesquite and we're in Henderson. And I'm going to give you a ticket. And there's, if you don't believe I can do it, you're welcome to go to court and I'll come back down and
be an interesting explanation.
We'll have at it." But anyway, back to my original story.
Yeah, you're right.
So we're sitting around the Joining Forces banquet.
Okay, yeah.
And my chief was not there. He was in a meeting, I think, somewhere at City Hall. And me coming from the FOP, where I went to all the conferences, and when I said banquet, I meant a conference.
Yeah.
Where I went to so many conferences by that time, and I had like a myriad of experience. So I knew certain things that a lot of these guys didn't know, not because I was smarter, but because I had experienced it in life.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting around they asked me to go, and I'm sitting there with a couple sergeants, and I don't know if the one was lieutenant yet or not, but every one of them was above me in rank, because, I was older, but they were all above me.
Well, you came in, a couple of years in advance or maybe even less?
Yeah. So I'm looking at them, and we're right in the beginning of this banquet, and I said, "When are you guys going to get up and welcome everybody?" They said, "What?" I said, "Somebody from our PD has to get up and welcome everybody in this room," because we had officers from all over the whole state. Mm-hmm. And I said, "Somebody's got to welcome them." And they said, "I'm not getting up there in front of people." And I said, "One of you guys with rank has to get up. You don't understand. I've been to so many conferences in my life. Somebody from the PD that hosts this has to get up and say, welcome, blah, blah, blah."
Yeah.
"I'm not. You get up." And I said, "I'm a peon." I said, I got nothing. I'm just a patrol officer, They said, "You get up." All right, I'll get up. I don't care.
Time to do it.
You know me. Mike doesn't worry me.
Duty calls.
So I got up and I gave the lady that was welcoming everybody, I think she might have been like the person in charge or whatever, I gave her the high sign. I said, I walked over and just right off the cuff, I said, "Hey, we'd like to welcome everybody to Mesquite. Chief Douglas Law is in a meeting down at City Hall, but on behalf of the chief and Mayor Susan Holacek, I'd love to welcome everybody. If you need anything, don't hesitate to call our officers. Let them know." I said, "We can't really give you extra gambling money, but if you get stuck somewhere and you need a lift, make sure you call us." Because I said, we're here, and we're all brothers and sisters, and we'll take good care of you.
From the broadcast perspective, you got all the points in there. You got the humor with your little with your joke. You got the courtesy, the thanks to everybody showing up, to the people that are hosting. I mean, you from a broadcaster, you got all the pieces in there just off the cuff, and you sealed your fate, didn't you?
I welcomed him with the chief law and the mayor. See, that was the other thing.
Exactly.
Yeah, I did, because they said, "Oh my gosh, this guy knows what he's," And I don't mean this the wrong way, but they said, "We never had a guy like this.
Yeah.
We gotta make him do something." So lo and behold, next thing I know, time goes on, obviously, and I'm working shifts and doing my thing. And they create this public information officer position.
Have to to be a PIO, Bob.
Yeah, and the chief calls me in and he says, "Hey, I'm creating this position. You probably want to put in for it, right?" You know. So I did. Another guy did too, but I put in, and lo and behold, I got it. And
We had an audition,
well, and
unbeknownst to you.
I was pretty happy with it. And
Yeah.
the other thing was they didn't realize that I had the ability to run programs, put together banquets, and that was all FOP. I must credit FOP. That was what did it for me. Well, and being on the board, going to functions and seeing things, you know.
Yeah.
It was life's experiences, and that's the thing that's great when you go elsewhere that they don't have this. Now, I didn't push it on any of them. I allowed them to see that I could do it, and then they asked me to do it. I didn't push it and say, "Hey, I'm the guy with all the answers." And that was the one thing I was very careful of not doing at Mesquite. Every time they would say something, one of the guys that had been there would say something to me about doing this or doing, I'd say, "Wait a minute. If I wanted to keep my rank and I wanted to be the big cheese, I'd have stayed where I was. Mm-hmm. This is your house. You have to tell me how we operate here."
Yeah.
I know how we did it in Dover, Ohio, but I said, "You have to tell me how we do things here." And that went with, you know, as far as calls, that went with doing just silly things that you can't even imagine. I'd always make that statement. "You have to tell me how we do it here.
Yeah.
I know how we did it there."
Yeah, exactly.
Because I didn't want to make a mistake either. You know, I mean, here it would look pretty bad if you're a guy with 25 years and you make a mistake that looks like a rookie.
Well, it's nice to hear about I mean, you just being careful.
Yeah,
through the
and
rest of it.
courteous,
Yeah.
both. I mean,
Yeah.
really, I was. And I didn't want to trample on anybody's toes. And I was trying to be very careful not to do that because it would have been very easy, but I sat back and, I probably played dumb a couple times when I'd tell them, you know, "Oh, I didn't realize how you do that. That's great. I'll try it," you know. I could have done it, but,
Yeah.
you know, but again, experience was the only way I could have done it.
You see difference, I mean, through police work, through everything you saw out there and here in Dover. I mean, is there a difference in what you were handling?
A big difference. Yeah, a lot more. It was a lot busier out there. Of course, we were basically the main thoroughfare from Denver, Colorado to Las Vegas or Los Angeles, because you almost had to go through Mesquite or at least pass us on the highway.
Yeah,
yeah. We bordered Arizona, so we were either the first place in or we were the last place out.
yeah,
So, in other words, when you had legalized gambling, which it is, you were either the first one that, everybody, they got casinos, let's stop. Or we got to stop there before we hit Arizona because we're done with casinos. You know?
Yeah.
So, and I mean, it was different. We were a lot busier. And I tell you, that in all truthfulness, the police out there, when you said something, people knew it and they did it. And they didn't argue, and they didn't fight.
In what way?
When you would tell somebody, "Okay, let's go, it's time to go," let's say they're acting up in a casino.
Yeah.
For the most part. Now, this is not all the time, but for the most part, the biggest difference I noticed, our guys or me or whoever would say, "Okay, you know, you've done enough, let's go, we're going." Mm-hmm. They would say, "Okay." They would go. Whereas here, if we were at an liquor establishment in Dover, which I probably better not name, but we were there all the time, and I'd say that, well, they'd want to argue and fight, and you know, and we'd have to call Philly and get everybody over there, and they would go. And the end result is they would go, but it would be a brawl. And out there, I think as law enforcement, at least my experience dictates that your word was more respected. You were more respected. They didn't argue with you as much.
Okay.
I noticed that.
Interesting.
That, yeah.
I'd wonder why, but I don't have
Wild
the
West.
answer.
They knew. I think they knew. Don't mess with the Wild West.
Yeah, it's true. You got that air of the.
I think that was it.
Yeah.
And me coming from here, it was all new, and it was a new. There was a lot of things that were new business, new way of doing things.
Yeah.
Many things I learned. In fact, I really did get yelled at a couple times, only from the standpoint of officer safety, because we didn't do it here. Mm-hmm. And out there's certain things they did that absolutely I picked up habits, and I think they're good habits.
I'd feel like here there'd be a lot of repeat calls. There'd be a lot of
Yeah.
opportunities where you're going to a house that you might even know the person's first name.
Oh yeah.
We're
And
out there, you're seeing those passerbys, you're seeing those, rather the passer-throughs.
Yes, especially when you stop cars, you know.
Yeah.
Here we were more like, not you again, Tom.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And there brings up the point I was trying to get. Here we were a little more laxed or relaxed.
Well, when you're going in there, you're saying,
Because
how's it
I
going
knew-
tonight? Yeah.
I knew every third person I read. And of course, when you're involved in all your community activities, your
Yep.
community, you become a very well-known commodity.
Visible.
And you know, it was very difficult. I wrote more traffic tickets in 5 years in Mesquite than I ever did in Dover, Ohio in 25.
In 25. So, and you said 5 years out there.
5 years in Mesquite because I didn't know anybody. It was easier to write a ticket to someone you didn't know
Yeah.
than it was to someone you knew.
There's
Or-
accountability back here.
Well, yeah, or the first thing they would say is, "Oh, I live next door to your cousin so-and-so," or, "Geez, I voted for you when you ran for the board," or, "I knew your mother, or she went to church with me," you know.
Now I know the tricks. No,
Yeah,
I'm just kidding.
it didn't work on every guy, but
Yeah.
but for me, it did, and you know, and well, the other side of that is, many times a warning is a lot better than a ticket, and I learned that from the old guys that I started with.
Mm-hmm.
Case in point, Mesquite. I had a young man zipping through town. Now, if you lived in Utah, if you lived in St. George, Utah, which was only about 23, 24 miles from us, it's about like a trip to Canton.
Okay.
You lived in St. George, you were an hour behind us, or an hour ahead of us, I'm sorry. You were an hour ahead.
You're crossing time zones.
Yeah, so in other words,
That's
if we
weird.
if we were at home in Mesquite and we thought, "Oh, geez, let's run up to St. George and eat dinner,"
Yeah.
you had to realize that the minute you got to St. George, it was an hour later. So don't go up there at 7 thinking that you're going to get dinner at you know, because it's 8 o'clock already.
Yeah.
You know?
That'd be nice to live in St. George and work in Mesquite.
Oh,
That'd be
yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah.
You can leave an hour. You can leave when you have to work. But anyway, tell me about that.
So a young man, you know, juvenile, he's cutting up a little bit, driving a car, blah, blah, blah. Get him stopped. His name happened to be Levitt. No relation to the good old Doc, my buddy. But his name was Levitt. And I said, "Is your father home?" "Yeah." I says, "Call him up on your cell phone." So I get him on the phone. I said, "Mr. Levitt," and I told him who I was. I said, "I've got Ryan here," or whatever his name is.
Yeah.
"I've got Ryan here. He was cutting up through town." And I said, "I'll tell you what, either I can write him a traffic ticket, or when he gets home, you can handle it." He says, "You send him home, I'll handle it."
He would have rathered a ticket.
Oh, yeah. And he thanked me up and down, and I said, "That's okay." I said, "I know from experience that sometimes it's better to have a parent handle it than a traffic ticket."
Yeah.
That was one. The other one was a young man on Pioneer Boulevard. Still remember the names. He was speeding,
Yeah.
and I stopped him. And he was a young man, kid, driving a girlfriend's car, big Mustang, you know, hot rod. And I stopped him, and we got him out of the car, and I'm talking to him. I got his driver's license in my hand, and I said, "Why were you speeding?" Just her car, and I was just goofing off. It wasn't really anything horrible, you know.
Yeah.
I says, "Well, ball's in your court." He says, "What?" I said, "Ball's in your court. What do you want to do? You want a ticket? You want a warning? Do you want to just leave? What do you want to do?" He says, "You're kidding, right?" I said, "Not at all." I said, "You call it. Your day. You call it. I'll take a warning." So I flipped him his license. I said, "There's your warning. Don't ever let me catch you speeding again, because there'll be no more second chance."
That leaves them with positivity.
Well, sure it does.
But also, I mean,
That was the purpose.
It wouldn't be cool to get caught by you speeding again.
No, and he knew that I meant business. You know, he did. I mean, he knew that I meant, "Don't let me catch you again, because I know you're here now."
Yeah.
Because his girlfriend lives there, and well, he lived there too apparently. And yeah, and it was like, oh, you know what? The kid wasn't really hurting anybody. He speeding a little bit, but
Sure.
But you know, and it really gave him a positive, like, man, maybe those police aren't as bad as I think. So I like to do that when it's very unexpected.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and then there's times you can't do that. You can't always do those things.
Well, sure.
You know, when it's a crime, you can't just say that.
Exactly.
You know,
I'm interested in that. Like, there's that wiggle room where I mean, the particular officer's philosophy comes into play.
Oh, yeah.
How does that work?
Well, I had a guy, I told the story today up at school.
There we go.
To the custodian. I had a guy that at that bar in Dover that I talked about, and everybody that's listening or watching, they know what bar I'm talking about.
People that know you.
Back in the 90s, 2000s, it's busier than everything under the sun down on 3rd Street.
There we go. We're getting more specific.
Anyway,
more specific.
We had a guy arguing. It was a disorderly conduct call, basically, is what it was. 2 guys were arguing back and forth. Mm-hmm. And I got there, and a couple of us got there. And this guy would not shut up. And I mean, I was trying to do my best to calm both of them down, separate them, get them to the point where it's like, okay, you go your way, he can go his way. It wasn't like it was a big assault or anything. It was something I could deal with my own discretion. Mm-hmm. And he just wouldn't shut up. He just kept, I said, all right, one more word out of you. And I said, you're getting a summons for disorderly, and you might even go to jail. Well, he pulled the ultimate mistake. Guess what he said?
Do I want to know?
Word.
Word.
I said, that's it. You're done.
Well, he tested the limits.
He did. And I followed through. And I said, that's it. You're done. Oh, no. Yeah. And I wasn't trying to play big man on campus by any means.
Yeah.
I told him, be quiet and don't say another word. And he thought he was going to be cute in front of all his buddies and say the word.
Like, let's show off a little bit.
And that's what he was doing. And I thought, okay, you're done. And I ended up writing him a summons for disorderly. Now, I didn't write him a disorderly for saying word. I wrote him disorderly for what he did before, after I had warned him to be quiet.
You gave him those chances.
I did. I gave him a chance to cease and desist his behavior. Now, it didn't elevate it. It was a minor misdemeanor. It was nothing.
Yeah.
But it was a fact that I had made that comment and statement, and you're not going to embarrass me in front of everybody at that bar, because the next time I go in there, they're going to say, oh, just all you got to do is just buffalo him a little bit. He'll give in.
Sure.
So, it was basically, it was officer's discretion.
Well, yeah.
So
is that like a written thing? How does that work?
No,
Officer
it's an
discretion.
unwritten thing.
Yeah. I'm interested in officer's discretion.
Well, you have a lot of discretion to do as you please when it comes to certain offenses. Now, there's some that, you just don't have any choice. You got a guy that you just absolutely admire the guy. You love the guy, but he crashes into a car and he's drunk.
Yeah.
You can't very well just shuffle. I mean, I never could. Maybe some people can. I could never.
Yeah.
Just usher him into the car, take him home, and say, well, this never happened.
Well, then we're looking at a second crime involving the police officer.
It's awful. And I would never here's my deal. I didn't want to risk everything I worked for, everything I had behind me, for a person that didn't really care.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like, there's certain things that you can use your discretion on, and if someone violates the law, you can give a warning, you can give a ticket, you can do whatever you got to do. Mm-hmm. But it's unwritten, but yet you have that discretion to be able to do those things.
Yeah.
As an officer, and hopefully you'll use good judgment, solid judgment, and discretion, and you'll be able to, do the job and do it right.
And before we get out of Mesquite in your story, Bob.
Yep.
I want to hear about a Facebook post that I saw from you about, I don't exactly remember the speed, but it was it was a fast speed.
Thanksgiving Day.
Tell me about Thanksgiving Day.
Well, at that time, and let me go forward a little bit. Not only did I have the PIO spot, then the high school resource officer became available.
In Mesquite?
In Mesquite, at Virgin Valley High School.
Okay.
That's the name of the high school, Virgin Valley High School.
Yeah.
And I put in for that, and I got it. And I had a great time at that high school because I was the PIO, but plus I was the Virgin Valley High School officer. And you got to know the high school students, and they would come in. I had a refrigerator full of water. Water's a big commodity, obviously, out west where it's 175 degrees.
Just packed in the trunk.
Yeah. So I had a refrigerator with water and always had candy in my office. I had a regular, and I had certain, in fact, one of them is a Mesquite police officer right now. Stetson Ruth is his name.
Was it a student?
He was a student at the time, and
okay.
now he's a police officer for the city of Mesquite. And I'm so proud. He was in Vegas, and he decided he wanted to go to Mesquite and back home.
Yeah.
So he actually went and took the test, and he went to Mesquite. And I'm so proud of him because he was, he was there, and now he's in Mesquite. And he was one of the students. He'd pop in occasionally. His mom worked at the school, and he'd pop in. I had several students pop in, just pop in, no reason. Hey, got a water? Hey, how about the candy? And it was a great opportunity. And
Yeah.
I was there actually 3 years until I left. I only left because we left. Otherwise, I'd have been there a while.
Yeah.
But that post you're talking about, I worked Thanksgiving Day because we were off school and they needed a body. And a lot of times that happened on a weekend. You know, I worked Monday through Friday, and they'd say, hey, we got somebody wants vacation. Can you cover Saturday or Sunday? Yeah, whatever. I don't care. So I worked Thanksgiving Day, and I'm setting radar up on I-15, and I hear this loud squeal on the radar. And, well, the louder the pitch, the faster the car, or bike in this case.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, there's a little radar training for you.
Something that I don't know.
Yeah. The louder the pitch on the radar, the faster.
Catch your attention.
So I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden, here comes a crotch rocket, and he passed me, and I locked him in at 123.
123.
And I knew that if I pulled out immediately, there is absolutely no way that I'm going to catch him at either before the 120, which is the first exit, or the 123, which is the second exit. And right after 123, you're in Arizona.
Okay, so that is where you stop.
Pretty much for speed. I mean, it's not
Yeah.
like you're going from Dover into New Philly where you have the right to go into Philly and write a ticket.
Yeah.
You know, you're going into another state. So I pulled out, and I thought, well, I'll try it. And I called dispatch, and I said, hey, let Arizona DPS, Department of Public Safety, let them know that I got a yellow crotch rocket headed into the gorge. The gorge was between Mesquite and St. George.
Okay.
And I said, let them know, and if they happen to see him, maybe they can stop him, and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, here he decides he's getting off at the 123. Just a stroke of luck. I'm behind him with the lights, you know.
Yeah.
And I'm back far enough that he didn't really see me to take off. Anyway, he decides to get off at the 123. Well, I'd already had another guy and tell him, and the guy was waiting at the bottom. So we both stopped him, and he gets off. He stops the bike and gets off, takes his helmet off. Helmet law in Nevada.
See, that's surprised. I like that helmet law because I'm so tired of seeing people not wearing helmets.
He takes
It
his
seems
helmet
insane to me.
off, and he's got ear pods in, and he says, geez, was I speeding or something? I said, well, a little bit.
Those bikes
I
are
said,
scary.
Nah, a little bit. I said, you were doing 123 when you passed me. Oh, man, no wonder it didn't take me long to get from Vegas here. I said, yeah, that'd pretty well do it. So I got to tell you, though, again, his demeanor.
Yeah.
He was polite. He was actually funny. He apologized, very apologetic. Now, I could have taken him for reckless operation. I could have towed his bike.
Yeah.
Probably put him in jail.
Yeah.
And I checked with my sergeant because on that one, I could have used discretion, but I didn't want to get yelled at later.
Oh, sure. You see 123. You start to question the.
Yeah, so the sergeant that was working, I called him, and he said, no, you go ahead. Do what you want to do. You know, whatever you want to do. So I went back, and I said, I'm going to tell you something. Because of your demeanor, because of your politeness and the way you've acted, I'm just going to write you this ticket and tell you to hit it.
Yeah.
And I said, don't forget to come back for court because they'll issue a warrant if you don't. And he said, well, when I get to my father's, I'm going to have to explain this because he's a retired judge in Utah. So I thought that was kind of funny. But it just goes to show that, you know, if you use a little bit of respect, and it worked with me, a little bit of respect and politeness and, you know, hey, I was wrong. I didn't know I was doing it, but I did it.
Yeah.
You say I did it, I did it. You know, they know. I mean, they pretty much know they're wrong. But
Happy Thanksgiving to that guy.
yeah, well, and he got a break because he didn't get his bike towed and he didn't get a reckless op, and he could have. But there's that discretion again. See, I rode for speed only, not reckless op. And didn't tow the bike, and it was again because of his demeanor and the way he acted. So I was okay with that.
So you got these good stories out of Mesquite. What brings you back to Ohio?
We came back home because my mother had just passed away April of that year, 11. And on the way back, we drove, obviously, and on the way back, wife's mother wasn't doing too well. And we had a talk. I mean, you've got 3 days to have a talk. You actually get tired of looking at the person beside you in 3 days. But
Yeah, I know. I agree with you. I took a train out west, and me and my girlfriend didn't talk that much after about 2 days.
Well, yeah. So you know, I said, look, your mom's pretty ill. I said, maybe we better go home. And I said, I don't want you to go through what I did. I flew home once or twice overnight because it was supposed to be, quote, the end. And it wasn't the end, but I flew home fast. I mean,
Yeah.
I remember catching a plane in Vegas at 10:30 at night.
Yeah.
And I got in here about 7 in the morning.
That
Cleveland.
moment's notice type thing.
Yeah, and I said, I don't want you to go through what I did. Maybe we should go home. So we packed up and came home and
Did you pack all up? You were moving.
everything.
Okay, so
Yeah,
you
we
just
did.
decided to up and move then.
And yeah, and then unfortunately 7 months later she passed away.
But you were home.
But we were home, and that's what I told the wife. I said, listen, the greatest thing in the world was when your mother closed her eyes for the final time. She knew that you and me gave up everything that we loved and came home for her.
Yeah.
Well, and her dad, but I mean, we came home for her, and we really did. I mean, we didn't come home because we hated it.
Yeah.
I absolutely loved it.
Sure.
But your heart, my heart was actually still bleeding from my mom, and I thought, this just doesn't work, and I think we're needed at home because she had went home the year before that for probably about 8 weeks, just to help her mom and be around, and
Yeah.
and I could have probably sent her home, but I don't know, something just compelled me to say that maybe we better go home, and so we did.
So, that was 2011, you said?
That was 11. Yeah, June of 11 we came home.
So, I mean, you leave the force in Mesquite,
Yep.
but you're still on the force, Bob.
Well, we left the force in Mesquite. I came home, of course. I didn't lose my contacts here ever.
Yeah.
And I wanted to be I was going to be a reserve or an auxiliary or something.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to keep my commission. I didn't want to get rid of my commission. And as fate would have it, good thing I didn't. Or the sheriff, when I told you the sheriff called, he could have called me, and if I would have given up my commission, I couldn't have done what he asked me to do, and I wouldn't be where I'm at today. Mm-hmm. So, something told me don't give up the commission. So I must credit Sheldon Demetio from Philly, because I ended up going to Philly and talked to Jeff Urban, who was chief at the time, and I said, hey, how would you like an old retired Dover guy? And he says, yeah, we'll take you, And I had to go down and take a certain amount of classes from Sam Hitchcock's. At the time, it was his basic law enforcement training, but I had to take so many hours to get my certification back in Ohio. And Sheldon just beat the drum, because he wanted more. You'll understand this. More than anything, Sheldon wanted to get me in a new Philly uniform for the Dover Philly game that year.
Worth it.
Yeah. He just couldn't wait. And of course, not many people knew we were home.
Yeah.
Because I didn't broadcast it or anything.
Well, guess what happened when you go to the Dover Philly game, Bob? Everybody and their mother's there.
Oh, and I was called traitor and everything. They're looking at the patch like, I thought you left. I thought you retired.
How dare you?
Yeah, and here I am in a Philly uniform.
You're across the river.
Yep. And so actually I got on New Philly Auxiliary, which I'm still on today, and I really enjoy it. They got a great department, a lot of good people, a lot of good hardworking people, and still there today. And again, I stayed certified, so that enabled me when the sheriff of Stark County called and said, hey, would you consider this? I was able to say, well, yeah, because I'm still certified. So
when did you go to the FOP? Again, because you were already there. You said 89, right? You were at the FOP.
I started out as president in 89, and I went all the way to 06 when I moved.
Yeah.
All right. Now, I will offer this. When I talk about term limits, I'm talking about term limits, not necessarily as a job that you do for free. And
sure.
FOP I don't consider that the same as I would a board or a elected position by the people. I'm talking about, this is a fraternal organization that.
I don't think anybody's going to burn you down.
Yeah, well, no. I mean, I'm just saying
the
membership are the ones that elect you. It's not like you have outside people that come in and say.
You got the most experience, I'd imagine.
Well, yeah.
If anybody that'd be involved in the FOP.
Well, at the time, the guy that was my vice president, he took over, and he chose not to run in 12, or actually it was November of 11, I think. I think it was. Maybe it was 12. I can't recall now. I'd have to look somewhere. But anyway, he chose not to run, so they all said, well, you did it before. Why don't you do it again? So I re-ran again, and here we are, and I'm still there. And, I did have a stint now before I ever moved as a state FOP officer, Sergeant at Arms, a state of Ohio FOP. Mm-hmm. And I'd been on the state political screening committee for years. So,
I mean, you're up there now too. I mean, what just happened? There's a newest development.
Well, I was recently Back in, actually, it was February when I say recently. I guess it was February,
February
January.
feels like 10 years ago.
I know, and I know because of 2020. January, February, I got appointed. I got recommended by the National Fraternal Order Police President to serve on a commission, and I was actually appointed by the United States Attorney General Barr.
Yeah.
To serve on the President's Commission on Criminal Justice and Law Enforcement. And what we did, it was a whole group of, and I will be honest, these all were heavy hitters, except one, this guy.
Yeah, it says Bob Everett.
He wasn't the heavy hitter of the group.
You got that local perspective.
Well, I know, but I mean, I'm talking the sheriff of the large county in Alabama. I'm talking about the sheriff of such and such county. I mean, all these huge heavy hitters.
Yeah.
And I kind of felt like I was the peon of the group. I mean, we're talking about FBI people and, district attorneys for the state of Montana.
Yeah.
A sheriff out in Kansas that has been in office since I think Grover was a pup. I mean, he's just he's a funny guy, but in other words, I served on this commission. I was very fortunate.
Yeah.
Because I was on this commission as a member, and what we did, it was the commission, a working group of rural and tribal law enforcement. Now, obviously, I knew nothing about tribal, but my whole life has been in rural law enforcement.
Yeah, in both places.
Yeah. So what we did, we basically were able to offer ways that we could improve all before any of the garbage happened that you now read about, the hate and discontent. We were able to recommend changes and training and changes for law enforcement that would better law enforcement officers and give us better tools to do the job. And the last time a commission was formed was under President Lyndon Johnson. So that's quite a while ago.
Yeah.
So, I mean, 50 years ago.
Yeah.
So I really felt fortunate, but I was appointed to that commission. And it was the working group of the commission. I wasn't one of the top dogs. But regardless, I was very fortunate to be appointed. And I owe that to the national president of FOP and the attorney general who took nominations basically from the national FOP president.
So tell me about this. I mean, this kind of brings our whole conversation to a head then.
Yep.
There's, like you say, discontent going on right now.
Unfortunately.
Where are your efforts right now?
I continue to push the positives for law enforcement. My standard canned line to anybody that asks is, if you think for 1 minute that we like the bad guys in blue, we don't like them either. We don't want them. We want them gone, as bad as you want them gone.
Yeah.
And the biggest plea I have is, please don't paint us with a wide brush.
Yeah.
Because we're not all the same.
And I think around here, I mean, we saw the protests, and we saw Orvis Campbell leading that protest.
Yeah.
I mean, like walking with them, leading them. We are definitely isolated in a way.
And again, coming from all my years here, we're pretty fortunate. We have a lot of support in Tuscora County, and we are fortunate, and we're very appreciative. As I said, the FOP takes on the Christmas with a Cop. You and I have talked about that.
Yep.
Many occasions. And we're very fortunate for the support that we get. And I just want folks to know that some of these bad things that are happening, we don't subscribe to those, and we don't want any part of them. And we're pretty lucky here. I think we got a great group of officers, men and women, that really and truly do everything they can do to protect, to serve, and then to go home. That's the big goals. You want to protect the public and the people you serve, and you want to go home, whether it's at night, in the morning, or afternoon.
So where do we see Bob Everett now? Where do we see your work? Where do we see you?
I'm currently, you mean?
Anywhere. How do we see the effects of Bob Everett?
Well, I hope you can
up?
see him through the FOP and what we try to do in this county. Christmas with a Cop is our big program, and we try to help. Sometimes it's around 50 children, sometimes it's less, but we solicit donations from residents, from companies, from whoever, and basically the teachers in our county turn in students who they believe could benefit from a better Christmas through our efforts. And what we do then, we have an officer in New Philly, Chad Dorsey, who calls those who are turned in as a recipient. And he finds out from the parents, first off, if they want to be a recipient. Second off, if they do, every child under 18, what their needs are, and then what their desires are. And we try to take the funds that we get and purchase clothes, hats, gloves, coats, boots, and then we get to the games, toys, games, and yo-yos.
Yeah.
You know.
Get those necessities, and then you also got to get those presents.
And we've been very fortunate. That program has helped so many children have a brighter Christmas. And it really means a lot when we're New Philly Elks is gracious enough every year to donate their banquet room.
Yep.
And we owe them a lot of thanks, the trustees, the management. We owe them a great deal of thanks for that. And they give us the room. Santa and Mrs. Claus make an appearance. And the presents that the children get are all wrapped, our members and their wives and friends, et cetera. We all gather one night and we wrap every present. And then they're put in the bags. And then each child there gets a bag of gifts.
Yeah.
And it's all in thanks, again, to the people in our community who care and who give us the opportunity to basically put on the program.
Planning to do that this year? This is a weird year.
It's a weird year, but we're planning on it. I know it's going to be tough. It's going to be very tough to ask people for funds, but we can't let the children down who may not have Christmas just because things were rough. And we understand that. Obviously, I don't know that we're going to be able to get the funds that we have every other year.
Sure.
But we'll do everything we can feasibly do to make Christmas a little bit brighter for a certain number of children. And I just feel like we have to. And really and truly, when they come on that Saturday, they are spread apart. And this is kind of funny, but they're spread apart at their tables. Each family sits at a table. And they really and truly are spread apart to a point where I don't think it'll be a problem with social distancing and mask and everything. We'll do what we have to do, obviously.
Sure.
We're not gonna disregard what the governor says or anything.
Yeah.
We'll do what we have to do. But I think we owe it to our communities and the families and the kids that we're going to try to do it as best as we can. And I know it'll be unusual, and this will be a weird year.
Say hi to Todd Hickson-Baugh real quick, Bob, as he walks in.
Hi, Todd.
1 second, Todd. And Bob, while I still have this chance to, like you said, it's going to be a hard year to get donations. We'll finish it off on how do we do that? How can I maybe, for anybody listening to this, help out?
We have a post office box at Dover, Tuscora, Lodge 4. Checks can be written to the lodge. And obviously, make sure you put down somewhere Christmas with a Cop, or cash, or money order, whatever you want to do. We have a post office box at Dover. It's P.O. Box 2, Dover, Ohio, 44622. The other option would be, if you put it in an envelope, drop it off at a PD, Dover, Philly, sheriff, whomever, just put on there Christmas with a Cop in care of the FOP. They'll make sure we get it. But I know we're a couple months ahead, and I didn't know we were going to plug for it. But
we're plugging it.
But it's going to be a tough year,
Yeah.
and we're going to need all the help we can get. And again, we just don't want to let the children down, because it has been tough. We realize it's been tough, and we may not be able to get the donations we did in the previous years, but we're certainly going to try.
Well, Bob Everett, I appreciate your time, sir. You got a wife to get home too, and I gotta get this all together so I can get it out to everybody. I appreciate your time.
Thanks again, Ryan. It's been a pleasure. And in closing, I just want to thank. I want to thank everybody that has had a hand in giving me so many opportunities over the years. Some of them didn't work out the way I thought they would, while others superseded everything. And I mean, I guess I'd be remiss if I didn't mention probably one of the greatest moments was when President Bush was in Dover, and he walked over to me and held his hand out, and I had the opportunity to shake hands with the president, and he put his arm around me, and I mean that was one of the greatest things in my entire career. And as I'm saying, a lot of opportunities have been given to me, and I'm very thankful for what's happened, for where I've been, all the different experiences I've had, and actually they haven't stopped yet. So we're going to keep plugging forward until the day comes that I don't want to put the clothes on, the uniform. I don't know when it'll be.
I don't see that
It'll
happening.
be someday. I mean, I'll be to a point where, geez, I don't know. You don't really want to walk up and tell a guy to get off a bar stool that has a weightlifting class in high school. I'm a little bit outgunned.
You won't be going back to Bob. I see you doing whatever it takes to stay in this job.
Well,
I guarantee you.
I've used a lot of interaction to get people sometimes to do what you want them to do. And I had a guy yesterday, in fact, nasty guy, when we showed up at his house, the principal and I. But by the time he picked up his child, and we were on the front sidewalk of one of my elementaries, by the time he left, he shook my hand twice and said, "I'm sorry, I was such an idiot."
There you go.
And I thanked him, and I said, "Hey, look, it's okay. I get it.
Yeah.
Not everybody likes us.
Yeah.
I get it." But I said, I appreciate you saying you're sorry. I appreciate the handshake.
Yeah. You're a man that knows what's important, Bob.
Well, I try. And I owe it, again, I owe a lot to my mother who isn't here. I owe a lot to Jack Griffin, who gave me that opportunity.
Bob, thank you for what you do, and thank you for your time.
Anytime, Ryan. My pleasure, and thank you.
Take
for
it
having
easy.
me.
Stay safe out there.
Yep, I'll do my best. Let's
sir.
hope.
Crown and ginger. That might be my new drink.
Yeah, Crown and Ginger.
Take it easy on the wallet, Bob. you're hurting my wallet is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I can't afford that as a young man yet.
You will.